Hi, everyone. Okay, so it looks like my camera's working today, which is great. Um, so I want to talk to you guys about the new um, public transit system that is being offered to youth in the Winnipeg and other areas of Manitoba. Now, it's being offered to kids as young as 12. Now, I really don't know how they're going to monitor this. Like, do the children have to wear, like, do they have to show student ID? I mean, can a 10 or 11-year-old go on the bus? I mean, the bus driver, if he's not going to ID him, how does he know how old they're going to be? It raises a lot of concerns, right? Um, there's also the fact that, like 12 years old, that's still too young to be on a public transit system alone. Um, the bus driver, from my understanding, city drivers, they're not to intervene if there's a disturbance on the bus. They're supposed to call for help, right? Well, your 12-year-old is on the bus by themselves, going to or from school. Some guy approaches them and starts harassing them. Hopefully that kid can stand up and go talk to the bus driver, but realistically, the bus driver might tell him to, if the bus is packed, to go back and have a seat. Like, if they could find one, right? And I mean, there there is Winnipeg isn't exactly the safest place. Like, it's definitely not the worst in the country as far as crime's concerned, with areas, but at least I don't think it is. But I can tell you horror stories about going on the public transit system in Winnipeg and literally being chased by somebody. I mean, eh, or standing at a bus stop and having random people, you know, approach you for money or whatever. And when you say you don't have any, um or no, then sometimes they get hostile, you know? It does happen. Now imagine your 12-year-old in that exact situation. Would you actually want that? Uh, I'm really concerned about this initiative. I know um, Premier Canoe, he probably means well, and at first glance, it sounds like a really great idea. Free services, awesome. But when you take into account the safety factors involved, it's really not such an awesome idea. I'm going to throw out a few facts to you guys. So, this is from the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs is responding to the July 2020, or sorry, the July 28, 2025 report by Thomson Reuters that confirms a direct link between the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two spirited people and human trafficking across Canada. The report identifies Manitoba as one of the hardest hit provinces, accounting for 21% of all cases nationwide, with women or sorry, with Winnipeg alone representing 14%. The report names Manitoba as one of the focal points, with Indigenous women moving swiftly from missing to being exploited in the online sex trade. Now, I'll talk about more about that, like the statistics around human trafficking in another video. I am going to mention a couple of statistics though. So that was from the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs website. Now this is from public safety, the Government of Canada Public Safety website. Okay, I'm going to post all these links. 93% of victims of police reported human trafficking were women and girls. 22% of victims of police reported human trafficking were under the age of 17. Now, quite often when you see human trafficking, like, okay, I'm going to stop here for a minute. Now, imagine your 12-year-old, or well, your younger child. Like, imagine them getting onto the city bus. They're heading to school. Some guy approaches them, says, like, let's go for a coffee or whatever. Maybe, or not coffee, but they're young, but a chocolate bar or whatever, right? Maybe they'll get off and go with them. The reality is you're not there. You don't know what's going to happen. And you don't know if that person is going to be threatening towards them or whatever, right? There was this one time I was sitting on a public transit bus, and I was coming home from college, actually. This was before university. But I was coming home from college. I was so incredibly sick. I shouldn't have even been at school that day. Had a fever, going home from school. All I wanted to do was sit down and get home, right? And I didn't normally I look at who I sit next to, but this day I was so sick, I didn't bother. I just found the first seat and I sat down. And this guy, he kept talking to me and I kept trying to ignore him. And I'd give him one-worded answers or whatever. If he said, nice day outside, yeah. You know, like, it was pretty I was just trying to, like, minimize the conversation. Anyways, this guy kept looking over his shoulder. And so I finally looked over my shoulder, and there was a bunch of older guys from in relation to me at the time, um, sitting around me. And you could tell that it was a very, very threatening situation. And um, so I got off the bus at Eaton's Place, when there was an Eaton's Place, and I started walking. This guy got off the bus and he started following me. Well, at this point I started running, and I got away from him and ran into a store and hid behind um some racks. And the owner of this store, he knew me because I passed by there every single day. And I kind of pointed at the guy and he's like, okay, and he told the guy that I went the other way. When the guy actually asked which way I went. Like, that is super creepy. And I mean, like, these are the kind of things that ch- your kids going on the bus by themselves may end up experiencing. There is a very good chance that they will experience nothing um but a good experience, but there's also a very real chance that they will experience something that potentially could put them in danger. And while Premier Canoe is putting out this initiative in response to all the children who are missing or chronically absent from school, and that is great. I don't think that um I don't think he is considering the actual safety of the youth. I mean, is he going to put a security guard on all buses to monitor as children get on and off the bus? I mean, obviously, probably not to monitor where they get off the bus, but I mean, they're children. And I mean, they shouldn't there should be more precautions to keep the youth safe. It is going to be really interesting to find out from and I would strongly urge the media to take note of this. Take note of as much information as you can towards the statistics in regards to human trafficking, city bus attacks, um, missing women, all these things. Well, missing youth, I should say. Um, all these things. Take note of the stats at this time this year because I would be willing to bet anything they are going to go up next year. Unfortunately, this initiative is probably giving the predators picking ground to target um, Winnipeg and Manitoba youth. It is kind of sad, but that is what I think is going to happen. Um, so Manitoba continues to also face one of the highest and fastest growing HIV rates in Canada. So when we're talking about human trafficking, quite often human trafficking, if you see increase of human trafficking, quite often you also see an increase of HIV rates go up. Um, Cases in the first half of 2005 almost doubled compared to the same period in 2024 in some areas of Manitoba. The number of people diagnosed with HIV and referred to Manitoba HIV program between January 1st, 2025 and October 31st, 2025 was 349 plus. In status quo environment, recent HIV models for Manitoba projected there was as many as 724 people newly diagnosed with HIV in 2026 and up to 1,080 in 2028. So those numbers haven't occurred yet. Well, the 2026 and 120, or sorry, the the numbers from 2026 and 20 to 2028, those are projected numbers. But I mean, based on what is what is occurring, there's a very real possibility that those will actually occur. Um, you know, it is really frightening. Um, when you look at this thing as a whole, it is really frightening. Uh, the domino effect that is taking place in Manitoba. I think that the premier could put forth a whole lot. Sorry, I think the premier could do better. I think there is better ways to address chronic absenteeism in schools. For example, the breakfast program that I mentioned, give the kids some initiative to go. Um, there's also, putting more money towards truancy officers, increase jobs in Manitoba by offering more truancy officers, right? And the truancy officers, I mean, what they could do is address the root of the problem. Why aren't these kids going to school? Do they not have a ride? Okay, well, maybe that is something that then gets addressed through the appropriate channels. But giving a 12-year-old a bus ticket and say, go ride a public transit system is a recipe for disaster, in my personal opinion. Um, and I mean, I've 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 watched some articles where there have been like employment counselors and stuff saying, well, it's a great initiative for the youth and everything. Yeah, if they're 16 years old and they're already able to work and they have had a few years to get street smart. But with kids who aren't even in high school yet, and you're giving them a public transit ticket to go ride a bus, I mean, uh, that's foolish. It is. It's a recipe for disaster. Anyways, I think that is where I'm gonna leave it for tonight. I'm going to post the links where I got the statistics from. Oh, yes. The information I got about HIV came from a report that came out from, hang on a second here. It was from the 2025 Manitoba HIV program update from manitobahiv.ca. So, um, it is fairly current, and as I mentioned, this the statistics are extremely scary. To Manitoba parents, I hope you're protecting the kids. I hope you're if you're allowing them to ride the public transit system, I well, even if you're not, I hope you're talking to your kids and I hope that you're um helping to educate them in regards to the dangers out there and giving them some of the tools to keep themselves safe. Anyways, you guys have a good night. My next post, I will probably be talking about the petition that I started, um, and what it included in it, and what the outcome was of it. And I mean, I'm nowhere near giving up on that thing. So we'll talk about that in the next video. Have a good weekend, everyone.